All right, let's start with the big story that we're tracking on WION at this hour, where it is Super Friday in the United Kingdom as the counting is underway and is pretty much reaching the critical stage across the country in what is said to be one of the most important elections in many decades in Britain. So as things stand, it looks as if Boris Johnson is going to return as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom yet again, with his Conservatives now looking like they're going to have a comfortable majority. Now, Boris Johnson has retained his Uxbridge seat with a vote margin of almost about 25,000 votes. And speaking after the vote count, he called the results a mandate for getting Brexit done.
Thank you all very much. And listen, I don't want to tempt fate, because clearly lots of results are still coming in and we're still only dealing with projections. But at this stage, it does look as though this One Nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done. And not just to get Brexit done, but to unite this country and to take it forward and to focus on the priorities of the British people and above all on the NHS. And yes, we will recruit 50,000 more nurses and 6,000 more GPs, and we will build 40 new hospitals.
All right, so that was Boris Johnson there, sounding pretty triumphant as the results have started to trickle in. But on the other side, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has also managed to retain his seat in Islington North with about 64% of the votes that were cast. But his party's performance has been underwhelming across the country. Now, in a huge announcement, Jeremy Corbyn has said that he will not be leading the Labour Party into another election campaign.
Thank you.
All right, so this is how the numbers, in fact, stack up at this point of time. The Conservatives, at this point of time, are slated to get about 278 seats. The vote count is not complete yet. The Labour, according to the projections, is set to get about 183 seats. More seats, remember, more votes need to be counted. And to add more perspective and to get us more information on this, I'm told that we're joined in by our London Bureau Chief, Mandy Clark, who's joining us live from London. And we also have Ollie Barrett as well, our correspondent who's joining us live from London as well. Mandy, let me begin with you on this. Now, this, of course, was a historic election, one of the most crucial elections in Britain in recent decades. Has Boris Johnson managed to get the majority that he wanted to deliver Brexit?
Well, it's still projections, but it definitely looks like that. If the exit polls are right and predictions, it will give him a very comfortable majority. Those results, as you say, are still coming in, but certainly a strong vote of confidence for his policies. And it really was, in many ways, a one-issue election, and that was Brexit. We've also just heard that Jo Swinson, she was the Liberal Democrats leader, has just lost her seat. So it's a pretty firm rejection of some of Liberal Democrats' policies. And as we're seeing, Labour certainly had a bruising.
Absolutely, indeed. Do continue to stay on with this. And Ollie, if I can bring you in on this, the other big story that we heard that's just come in is that the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, he has said that he will not be leading Labour into another election campaign. Is this drubbing of the Labour, something that points towards the lack of decisive leadership for Jeremy Corbyn, or did Labour simply did not have the right campaign strategy in going ahead with this election?
A bit of both, I think. Certainly Jeremy Corbyn, according to the polling, was the most unpopular leader of a major party going into an election campaign in modern times. There are some criticisms levelled at the campaign strategy as well, though. Criticisms of the Brexit position of the Labour Party and also of Jeremy Corbyn himself, who said that if there were to be the second Brexit referendum that Labour was going to give to voters if it got into government, Jeremy Corbyn said he would remain neutral in a second Brexit referendum. So a lot of voters felt there was a lack of clarity on the Brexit issue. Certainly, though, a lot of Labour members right now are looking at their leader and wondering whether a lot of this just boils down to the fact that many voters looked at Jeremy Corbyn and didn't believe that he was the right man to enter Downing Street.
Absolutely, indeed. And if you can dwell a bit more in terms of what this election now means for Boris Johnson, he's of course come back with, it appears he's coming back with a huge majority. And Ollie, if you can weigh in, is he now going to get Brexit done, or will he, face more challenges? Because this deal will still have to be passed by the Parliament, and he, although has a majority there, it looks like he'll have a majority there, he'll still have to convince his own Tory members that his deal is the best one.
He will do that because all of the parliamentarians who are in the Conservative Party now stood on the basis that they backed Boris Johnson's deal. So he knows he has their support for his Brexit deal that he reached with Brussels. Britain will leave the European Union, I think we can say with certainty now, on January the 31st. Now, Boris Johnson says that is getting Brexit done. His critics would say that's not getting Brexit done, because once you've left the EU on January the 31st, you go into a transition period and you then have to negotiate a trade deal with the European Union. Right. That could be even harder than reaching the deal that Boris Johnson reached with the European Union to get Britain out in the first place. So lots of challenges ahead when it comes to Brexit, but Britain will leave at the end of January.
Absolutely, indeed. And also, Mandy, if you can weigh in on the role that was played by, the diaspora, the Indian diaspora that did form a substantial chunk of the vote share. We saw Boris Johnson, in fact, visit a temple, try get as much of the British Indian vote behind him. Has that actually played out? Because traditionally, the British Indian vote had always gone to the Labour.
Exactly. That is normally a traditional Labour base, but we actually saw, particularly with issues around the, first it began with the Labour convention where they spoke out about Kashmir, where they drew policies that was seen as largely anti-Indian. They also had a number of policies that just felt that it was isolating the Indian community. We saw that people among those communities campaigning to support Conservative, and it certainly did seem like the diaspora heard that message and switched their traditional base. We saw that happen. The numbers are still coming in some of their major boroughs where we do know a lot of the diaspora are, but it looks that message of moving over bases within the own community has taken hold, and there has been a switch. It's been happening for some time, that change of alignment, but it certainly looks like it has manifested in this election.
Absolutely, indeed. And one of the other things which a lot of people are looking at is it is being reported that Labour has lost seats in North Midlands and also in Wales, in areas which had backed Brexit in 2016. So the mood of Britain is quite clearly for Brexit here.
Yeah, it certainly seems that this was a one policy election. There's the hinterlands that were actually traditionally Labour voters did also largely vote to leave when the Brexit referendum happened in 2016. There has been a feeling that the only party that would deliver Brexit, the promise of Brexit, was the Conservatives. So those traditional Labour seats that had been safe for generations have, for the first time, seen moving over to the Tory party.
Absolutely. And Ollie, if I can get you in on this, there was a lot that was spoken about the kind of leadership that Boris Johnson, in fact, brings about. He was seen as this figure who had just one plan ahead, and some even accused that he was not perhaps even telling the entire truth about Brexit that he wanted to deliver. Now, getting Brexit done was a slogan that it appears has appealed to the British people, but now once he returns to power, how easy is this now going to be?
Well, as I was saying earlier, getting Brexit done it can be interpreted in many different ways. Britain will leave the European Union on January the 31st. It will head into a transition period. And then Boris Johnson's continued to state through the election campaign that he will reach a trade deal with the European Union by the end of next year. That is a very tall order indeed, according to anyone who's ever been involved in any major trading discussions with the European Union or any other trading arrangements around the world on the global stage. So Boris Johnson has some choices to make here. Does he go for a pretty bare bones free trade agreement with the European Union, or does he go for something more ambitious and face the prospect of having to delay the date at which Britain reaches a trade deal with the European Union? With a sizable majority, he has the luxury of being able to make some of those decisions in the knowledge that he should be able to find the backing for it in Parliament if he can keep his own MPs on side.
I have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed to Ollie Barrett and also to Mandy Clark for joining us and getting us all those updates in terms of what is happening in this very crucial election in Britain. And we still await the final tally. Quite clearly, Boris Johnson has now pulled ahead with a pretty healthy lead, and it remains to be seen as to what will be the majority that he will end up with. So it does appear that the campaign promise of delivering Brexit has paid rich dividends for Boris Johnson, who now looks all set to return as the Prime Minister yet again.